This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
When heartbreak rings, answer the door.
Hey everybody, welcome to Crime Over Cocktails. I'm Tiffany, your host, and today I'm with my guest, Joann.
Hi, Tiffany. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here.
And I have my mock cocktail.
Yeah. I got my vodka. I love
Very
my
good.
vodka.
Me too. I tried various vodka drinks on the cruise I was on last month. So.
Vodka'd out.
Do I like vodka or tequila? And vodka and rum certainly made it over the tequila. Not sure where to start, but I could say I've been married almost as many times as Elizabeth Taylor. You know, that's not my best claim to fame, but I can say that, and I'll be happy to share why. I've been married 7 times, and most of those ended in divorce. Pretty much most of them did. One died. Not my fault, but one died, and the rest pretty much ended in divorce. And there's been some kind of abuse and definitely codependency that went on with each one of those. So now I'm on a new path, and people are probably going, well, it's like you know, I'm not laughing it off because it wasn't bad and hard and things like that, but I've realized, because I keep learning lessons with each marriage. And as I was just talking to a friend before we got on here, it's like, you know, I don't see myself as a victim, and I have moved on from all that, and, you know, I'm strong. So it's like, you know, it's good. I'm not happy that I had to learn those hard lessons, but I guess I had to learn them for a reason.
No, absolutely. Same thing with me. I feel like almost every relationship, you take something from it. And, you know, you can have friends telling you about things and you got alarm bells ringing in your head because you're like, no. You have no idea, like, the path you're going down.
Right.
And you have to learn the hard way sometimes. But I honestly and truly feel like it makes you who you are today. And I wouldn't change who I've become for anything.
Oh, good. Well, and, you know, I'm working with a few different mentors now. And it's like, well, and especially with COVID, gave me some extra time to work on this. But now that I'm in therapy, and basically your bucket list for the kind of relationship you want. And so I'm getting very clear on that. And I don't want to use bad words on your show because I don't want to offend anybody. But it's like, you know, it's like I have learned that I don't need to take any crap off of anybody. And that doesn't mean I need to be selfish or, you know, not the authentic me, but I just don't need to put up with the crap. And I'm old enough so that I really don't need to do that. You know, I can be picky and happy.
Yes.
And not necessarily lonely, but, you know, it's like I can afford to be pickier. And there were silly reasons why I got married so many times, and we might as well dive into that if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. You know, it's like I grew up, and there were many alcoholics in my lineage, so that kind of taught me how to be a codependent. You know, when you see your mom, and I'm not blaming my mom, but when you see that pattern, you become a codependent. So that's part of it. But I was a Mormon for 30 years, at least 30 years. Yeah, I think that's about right. And, you know, you get this little image, and I have nothing against the church. It just, I left it after 30 years. But you get this picture of marriage as, you know, the little house, the little happy family, forever happy family, and you're going to raise 1 million kids, and you're going to be all spiritual and do all your church stuff, and everybody's going to be wonderful, and everybody's going to want to parent the same way, and everybody's got the same idea of, how a marriage should work and how couples should work together. And, that just wasn't how it was for me. And then you get it's like, well, no sex before marriage. And so when your hormones are raging in your, teens, yes, but early 20s and going on, and especially if you've been married already once or twice or whatever, it's like, okay. And you're not, it's like, so you want to have that courtship short or you do have the courtship short, but it's just like, I didn't listen to the alarm bells, and there were plenty going off. And, it's crazy. And some of my marriages, my parents or my mom is just like, I don't really think you should marry that guy. Oh, what do you know? And it's like, I don't really, it's okay. I feel good about it. It'll be okay. I prayed about it. It's fine. And my parents weren't members of the church or anything. So, I just assumed, and by marriage number 2, I had married somebody who was not a member of the church, and he committed suicide. So that was bad enough. But now I have this toddler who needs a dad. And, I just thought, well, I need to get married again so she could have a dad. And I kept trying to find a good dad, and I just kept picking the wrong people. And, it's like the first marriage, the first red flag was we were having our wedding reception and cutting the cake, and the top layer fell off. It's like, oh God, there's a sign. And then we go camping, and his parents, truck camper thing for our honeymoon. And he's really allergic to dust and dirt and all this stuff. So day 2 of our honeymoon, he's having a bad allergy. So the honeymoon gets cut short. It's like, is this what life's going to be like? And then it was like, then he thought it was funny to pinch my arms and do weird little mean things. And it was funny. I was like, yeah, that doesn't really sit well with me. And then he finally admitted, we just, and here were these 20-year-old Mormons, and it's, life's supposed to be wonderful. And I'm going, I don't think you're supposed to be pinching my arms, and I don't think you're supposed to be throwing water or milk on me because you're mad at me. And yes, it wasn't serious physical abuse, but it was, it's like it just wasn't going well. And then finally, as we're really splitting up, and it's like, well, he goes, I never really loved you. It's like, what? And I was thin for 20. I was thin, and he was a photography major and used to seeing all these thin models. And it's like, I'm never going to be a size 2, dude, but I was not, at 120, I wasn't fat, but I was never thin enough. And I was just, the whole theme through all these marriages, I was just never enough. And that really sucks. And I never really loved you. My family thought, it was time I got married. So I picked you because you were a home ec major. And yeah, great, I could bake a good pie. And it's like, excuse me?
There's a little bit more to marriage than that. Yeah. And I was planning to go, continue college as well. And I was like, well, no, I'm the one that's almost done with my degree, and you need to stay home and work so that we have enough money to live on. It's like, okay. So I dropped out of college, and, I was earning the money, and we split up, and I moved back east where my family was. And it's like, oh, well, I think we should try again. I go, well, then you come to Connecticut and talk to me. Oh, no, I can't do that. It's like, well, I'm not flying back to Utah to talk to you. So we got divorced. And then a few years later, he marries, well, I don't know how soon, but he married somebody else. And a few years later, she was, she wrote me, and it's like, well, yeah, we're so happy. And he never wanted kids with, I thought, okay, we need to start a family right now, So that just wasn't going to happen. And then his new little wife, oh yeah, we have a kid or 2. I don't know how many. They started having kids right away. I think he had to drop out of school, or didn't finish his degree anyway, went back to the career that he didn't want. But she was thin, and she was tiny, and she was petite. And it's like, great, you've got your picture perfect wife. And so, it's just, ugh. And husband number 2, we were met and married within a month. Now that I wouldn't advise that to anybody. That's your first mistake.
Yes, but I also got pregnant in there. So it's a good thing we got married anyway, because I didn't know I was pregnant. So, okay, number one, I broke the church rules. And number two, we're getting married too fast. But my family liked him, actually, and he wasn't a member. But it turns out he was an alcoholic and he was addicted to drugs from an accident he'd had during his time in the Navy. But nobody told me that. And his family just thought, well, if he marries a nice Mormon girl, he'll just straighten out. Like, okay, no, you cannot cure somebody of their addictions just because you're a nice Mormon girl. So pretty soon it became obvious that I was pregnant, and that was fine. We were thrilled. We were all, that was fine. I wanted a kid. He wanted a kid. But again, he's having me, I'm trying to be this good Mormon. Well, okay, I really don't want you paying tithing. That takes money out of our budget. Do you really have to go to church? I'd rather us do something on the weekend. Would you please stop? Well, not even please. On your way home from work, would you stop at the liquor store and buy me this? It's like, I've never been in a liquor store in my life, dude, let alone buy anything alcoholic. But I did it because I was a codependent. And I was enabling his alcoholism because I wanted this marriage to work. Then I remember, we split up when I was 7 months old because he kicked me out. And by then he was also suicidal. But before that, I remember just sitting there on his lap and we're cuddling and he's blowing pot smoke in my mouth, thinking that was funny. It's like, dude, I'm pregnant. I should not be I'm not going to inhale it, but I shouldn't even be having it around me. And it's like, oh my God, what have I done to my kid? And then, I made the mistake once of really getting mad at him and saying, I hope your drug use hasn't damaged the fetus. And it didn't, but he didn't like that at all. He kicked me out when I was 7 months pregnant. Again, I went back to live with my parents and I was trying to move on and we weren't getting, it's like that marriage would have ended in divorce like the first one. And then he committed suicide, which was horrible. He saw his daughter twice. She was 5 weeks old when he died. He didn't know she had been born. Like somebody had to go to his apartment and tell him she had been born, but he got to see her twice and then he committed suicide. So she never knew her father. Luckily, she grew up knowing, his siblings, so her aunts and her grandparents and her cousins and stuff. So she always remained, we've always remained close to that side of the family. And that's been wonderful. But yeah, that wasn't good. The next guy was another Mormon. And again, so my daughter she was like a toddler when he and I met. And, he was had a good position in the church and acted like this really great Mormon guy. And I was starting to date and I wondered, why isn't anybody asking me out but this guy? Because a few people had. And then later I find out, I was telling them that you're mine and they should leave. Don't date you. Don't even ask you out. It's like, are you kidding me? You got to give me a choice here. And we got married. We eloped to Las Vegas because, again, the hormones are raging, so you can't wait for a long courtship. We eloped to Las Vegas, and on the way, we had a car accident. This guy in front of us was like carrying lumber in his pickup, and the piece of lumber flew out into the windshield. And it's like, okay. And we dropped the baby off at my mom's house and went to Las Vegas to get married. I'm thinking, what an idiot. Why did I do that? And it's like, and your audience is probably going, oh my gosh, this woman. And again, and it turned out this guy, he was larger and he had such an inferiority complex and through whatever his upbringing was, but he turned out to be so abusive. He had this, and again, in the Mormon church, the man is the head of the household, but you're supposed to be equal partners. You're supposed to be helpmates. But the man is the head. So, what the man says goes. And it's like, and he took that literally. And it's like, yeah, okay, I'm a Leo. I'm really independent. And, this isn't, it's like, this is not flying so well with me. Not that I don't want my husband to feel like he's doing his duty or anything, but he thought nothing of, your daughter's got like big heavy cloth diapers on, so I'm just going to swat her. Okay, you're not her dad yet. You're not. Later he adopted her, but he was starting to be very physically abusive, and he only hit me a couple times. I remember we lived in California, Southern California, in a crappy neighborhood, couple crappy neighborhoods. And then we decided, we're going to move to Ohio where some of his family lives, and, job opportunities would be better there, blah, blah, blah. For some reason, there was my mom was going to have this birthday party for my grandma. And I think it conflicted with his work schedule. And I think he just assumed they planned it that way so he couldn't go. So all of a sudden, my daughter and I are banned from going to see my family at all. You're really kidding me, right? And my mom's going, are you going to take that? And I'm going, I want him to be the head of the house. And, everybody's mad. And he takes off for Ohio to live there. So, I didn't go to the party, but I did start seeing my family before I left because I was to follow later with her after we packed up and put our mobile home on the market and all that stuff. And so then I get to Ohio and he's all mad because, I went and saw my mom. It's well, I'm not going to not say goodbye to my parents. Before he left for Ohio, we had an argument and he broke every window in our mobile home. It's are you crazy? And I went to the church leader and I said, this guy's abusive. Well, has he hit you? Do you think he's going to hit you? I go, I don't think so. Right now he's just taking it out on the stuff. Well, then, I guess I don't need to do anything. It's you don't think you ought to talk to him? Anyway, we moved, and that's where the physical abuse towards my daughter and me started. And I remember going out doing church service one day with one of the other women, and I left her alone with him, and she was 2 or 3. She was still a toddler, preschooler, toddler. And, I was gone for hours, and I came back and I'm walking in the house and she's on the couch laying down with her little pink quilted robe, and she's got this big bruise on her face. And there's nothing more crushing for a mother to come home and find out that their kid's got a huge bruise on their face, and knowing that she didn't just fall down and, randomly hit herself. And she pissed him off. I don't even know what she did. It didn't even matter. But he hit her, and this guy's huge, and he hit her. And again, did I do anything? Did I call the police? No. Did I walk out on him? No. Did I call the church? No. It's one of those things where you hear this all the time. It's why don't you leave him? Why did you let it go on? Why didn't you call the police? It's I don't know. I just didn't. And that forever, my daughter and I are still healing over those kind of things. And we've worked through a lot of that, and we are doing much better. There was a time shortly after that where he hit me up the side of my head, and that really hurt. And I ended up going to the doctor, and he's going, your husband, you hit you, on the head, right? I go, yeah, but I, almost broke his thumb when he did that, because I, grabbed his hand and pushed his thumb back as hard as I could. We were together 3 years. And I did, I finally said, I've had enough. He worked for an ambulance company, so he'd be gone 2 days at a time. And I called my mom and I said, I need money to fly home. Okay. And in his 2-day time period, I had stuff packed. I had a friend who we were going to take it to the trucking place. And then there was this blizzard. He came home between blizzards. And I said, you're driving us to the airport. We're leaving. Bye. And he did.
He actually drove you?
Yeah, he drove us to the airport because it was, we probably lived, I don't know, at least an hour or more from the Cleveland airport. But I made him drive us to the airport, and he did. Because he had adopted her, I had to, it took us a couple of years to get a divorce, but I had to allow visitation, even though she only saw him a few times and she didn't really want to see him. And, we fought over child support. And if people think they have to pay a lot of child support, I only got $100 a month out of him. And I usually only got it when he'd get a tax return or tax refund or this or that. So it was hard. And that was really hard. A few years later, then I met the next guy. And again, he was a really nice guy. We were good at the dancing and having fun. But, then as soon as we got married, he thought he needed to be all macho. And, it's okay, well, you don't have a real job because I'm a bookkeeper. So that's all brain stuff and thinking. And he finally got a job, and he was delivering ice cream and milk and, whatever, physical work. It's oh, you don't have a real job. Excuse me? I'm bringing in more money than you are. Just because I'm not toting a crate of ice cream. It's what's wrong with my job? And then he started to get abusive too. And it's one time, my daughter's 7. they never got along. And she kicked him with her little 7-year-old feet. He had cowboy boots on and kicked her back in her shins. It's like, dude, you just like broke the skin. You know, she's got this bump and a bruise, and it's like, ah. And I remember one time I was just trying to be affectionate and like pinched him, or, you know, was trying to be affectionate, and he just got all mad at me and got a little physical back, and like, okay, this isn't working. And that marriage only lasted a year. Then the next guy, we got along fine as long as, and I've said this before. It's like, I've never been a size 2. I'm never going to be a size 2, but I'm not, anyway, I am what I am. But I was kind of thin, but, you know, I've always tended to, like, you know, if you're unhappy, you probably eat. I do. And it's like, when you're not unhappy, you know, you tend to keep a decent weight. And when I started gaining weight, it's like he would withhold affection. It's like, I finally got, it's like, well, okay, that's like, and again, the prevailing theme is, well, you're not enough. And, you know, I don't like you now that you've put on some weight. It's like, well, I'm feeding all your kids, and I'm working, and I'm, you know, taking in my stepkids, and, you know, and I'm going along with all your crap, and you're not great employment and things like that. And so finally I just said, yeah, we're done. And my daughter, we moved from a decent part of town to like right downtown, which was like the train tracks were like literally behind our apartment. And my daughter was so embarrassed that we lived there. You know, she would never, I think she let one friend come see it. It's like, otherwise she'd have everybody drop her off, because our circumstances had changed so dramatically. And, you know, I all of a sudden was really poor, and I'd run up all this debt trying to keep the whole household together. And again, and the other thing, the abuse that I had with him was financial, because I was putting in money and he wasn't making a lot, but then he talked me into investing some money that I shouldn't have into something that bust. And so then all of a sudden I owe this person whose money I invested like $15,000, which I had to pay back, which I did. And then, so now I'm accumulating debt and having to do bankruptcy because I've taken on all this debt because of this dirt bag. And finally, when he was married to somebody else later and going to sell their house, I said, well, here's an actual lien on your house. When you sell it, I get that $15,000 back. And I got it, but it's, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world to have to go through bankruptcy, but it's really embarrassing. And then to have him show up at bankruptcy court with the new wife and their 2 or 3 kids that they just started having one after another. And it's like, it's like, and because I claimed, it's like, I'm having to file bankruptcy because of this guy. So he shows up with the wife and babies all in tow. And it's like, oh, this is great. This is really great. You know, to this day, we don't talk about it, but I have explained to his daughters, who I am now back in touch with, well, here's what happened. Your dad made it sound like I was the bad guy, and this is what happened. You know, he made it sound like I had this bogus claim that he owed me all this money. It's like, no, you know, that really happened. So, you know, they get it now. Okay. Any questions before I keep going?
No.
Okay. It's interesting because one of the things, my daughter, again, we've had to do a lot of healing. And thankfully, I'm living now 6 blocks away from her. So we've had 3 years to really work on healing things, which has been a blessing. And probably not everybody gets that opportunity, but I'm really grateful that we've been able to work on a lot of our stuff.
Face it, dating sucked in your 20s, gets worse in your 30s, and your 40s, forget it.
It's a cesspool out there, and we're your flotation device.
Join us weekly for saucy chat, ridiculous love gurus,
and MILF-worthy fun to spice up your life.
The MILF and Me Podcast. Every Wednesday on your favorite pod platform.
And the MILFandMePod.com.
The MILF and Me Podcast.
The next guy was... Now that I look back at him, he was pretty boring, except we really danced well together. And when you're a single Mormon adult, they have these dances. And I knew him through church. But then we started showing up at the same dances. It's like, oh, this guy dances really well. Oh, now we started going out and we had fun. It's like, so, and
I should marry him.
I know I should. Well, and here's the thing. My daughter was going to go off to Japan as a foreign exchange student. So God forbid I live alone for a while, I should have lived alone. I would have been just fine. And so we get engaged, and she boycotted the marriage. She would not come to the wedding. Bless her heart. She was probably right. I should have boycotted the marriage. I'm sorry. I shouldn't make so light of this. I realized, and I have written a book, but I could also do a comedy routine. And he was just boring. Life was boring. And she came back from Japan. And so then he and I separated for a while, and then we got back together. But it's like, and then I started going to therapy, and he goes, well, this is none of my fault. I'm not going to go to therapy. I've got nothing to say. It's like, okay, you won't go to therapy so we can work on this together? No, it's all your fault. It's like, okay, see ya. And so there wasn't a lot of abuse there, but there wasn't a lot of let's work together kind of stuff. Okay. And then I met the guy I just got divorced from, and we had been together like 25 years. We courted for 5 years. He was in prison. I knew that at the time. My roommate at the time came home and said, oh, I met this really smart guy. He's really nice. He's visiting with his mom. I go, oh, smart. Okay. That could be a new kind of boyfriend. That'd be good. And we started writing, and that was fun. And then I started visiting him, and we courted like for 5 years. And I thought, oh, this guy's smart. He's got all these interesting stories. It sounds like he's got some money, which I was not, I didn't ever look at it like, oh, I've made it big now. He's got money. He made it sound like he had money. We got married, and our divorce was just final in May. And so we were together, married for over almost 21 years. Which was a huge progress for me. But little did I know.
Prison the whole time? Or?
He was already in prison. So I would go, when he lived close enough, I would go every week to visit. When he lived like at the other end of the state, I would only go once a month. When he lived like several hours away, I would still go every week, but maybe just the one day. I wouldn't go stay down there. I would just come home. I would just see him once a week. And so and we'd write each other every day. And sometimes he would call, but usually we would just write each other every day. And he was a prolific writer, and I was doing some research for him while I was still working. I had this building I had worked for different companies, and then I opened my bookkeeping private practice again and was really building that up. And it's very successful, but he turned out to be a narcissist. And I've been in therapy for 3 years now for that. So the next book is going to be about that, even though I need to change all the names. But
Joann,
it's like, yes, I'm sorry.
He was in prison, my dear.
I know. That didn't bother me. What's your
go in prison for nothing? So may
well,
I ask, what did he go to prison for?
He was accused of. Okay, sorry, I'm talking really fast. He was accused of masterminding a murder of a murder happened. He really had nothing to do with it. But the kids who did it, who were working for his like reconstruction type company, said he planned this murder for this guy that owed him money. They were doing a job for him. And it was a pretty highly publicized murder in 1982. And I still, to this day, regardless of everything else, believe that he did not do it, because I've read through all this stuff and, I just don't believe he did it. He also worked for the military, which is true. I've got all that proof. And he was doing a lot of top secret stuff for them. So we as strange as it sounds, most of us are convinced that he was doing something for the military that he can't talk about and they can't prove it. So, he's been stuck in prison for almost 40 years. That aside, he's a very selfish person, and I shouldn't laugh. And I was living in his family's house and paying for everything for 20 years. And it's like, okay, I'm going along. It's like, and I would tell him all this is like, okay, another tree fell down. A sewer thing happened. I was in full communication about everything. As long as I was visiting him and taking care of his needs, everything was fine. And then along came, before COVID happened, I got to thinking, I want to retire in a few years. And if we don't figure out a way for him to help start paying for some of this stuff, I'm not going to be able to retire because I hardly have any money saved for retirement. Because I keep paying for the house and I keep paying for this and this and this. And I was running around speaking on his behalf for these military things and running up some debt to do that because you don't get paid to speak much at a conference. And I had published a couple of his books that actually, his mom helped pay for that stuff. But that was back before print on demand. So you publish books in hard copy and it costs a lot of money. And now they're sitting in storage because you don't sell them all. And it's like, can we dump these? No, I'm sure they'll still sell. It's like, oh, but before COVID, I kept thinking, I'm looking around and going, okay, Joann, you're in your 60s and your needs are not getting met on many levels and many, many levels. And I had said before COVID hit, I'm getting older and I want to retire by the time I'm 70, and I still had a few years to go. And it's like, so we need to come up with a plan so that we can either downsize the house. Cause you got to walk up 3 flights of stairs to get into the house. It's not a good house for old people. And, I want you to come home if you're ever going to come home, but it's like, this house is really hard to live in and it's fallen apart and da, 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 da. And I said, we need to come up with a plan. Okay. And so time went on and I let him start working on a plan. And I do a lot of energy work and people might consider what I do woo-woo stuff. But anyway, I was taking a class on psychic development. And one of the things at the end was like, cut an energetic cord with stuff that doesn't work for you anymore. Like, okay, I need to cut off the cord that, it's like the relationship needs to change from what it is. So what is this? This is 2020. So, at least 3 years ago, I was already thinking things really need to change. And I'd start to bring up stuff to him. And then I decided to move to Oregon, away from California and away from the house. And it's like, and he finally got my letter saying I was going to do that. And he blew up. It's like, okay. And he started to put all these things in motion. It's like, okay, well, you need to get all your stuff out of the house. And so the meanness started coming up, and I'd only seen him mean a couple times. And it's like, and he's quiet when he's mean. And it's like, you don't want to be on the other end of that. Because for a narcissist, it's all about doing stuff for them and it's their agenda. And you have to be constantly taking care of them. And they'll make you think like they love you and that you're being taken care of. And I'm going to cry, but I'm sorry. It's really not that way. And, so I go, you didn't even talk. Wasn't planning on divorce. I just needed to get out of that house before another tree fell. And before I had to, it's like, the house is just depressing me. I can't do it. And I moved to Portland, but he was so angry and so convinced. It's like, don't go into commando mode. Talk to me first. He was not good about talking about hard stuff, and narcissists aren't. And they just aren't. And so then, over the course of the next 3 years, it's like, okay, we'd start to talk about a few things. Okay, we're okay. I really was not planning on divorce. And there was no visiting for that first year of COVID. So why live there when I can't even see you, when I can go be near my daughter, and quarantine in a bubble where I can see a few people and not nobody, because I had to start doing all my work at home and all that. And then visiting started slowly opening up. And I would go see him occasionally. And then the normal visiting started opening up a lot. It's like, well, I thought you'd move back after that opened up. I go, why? It's like the house is falling apart and I still don't have a plan on how you're going to fix it up or start paying for it. And
why don't you sell it?
Well, that would be the smart thing to do. And I kept saying we should probably sell it, but it's his family home. And it's his only tie to the community if he ever gets paroled. And it's his legacy and it's his.
Okay. When is he supposed to be released?
Well, there's the good question. He has life without parole. So unless things dramatically change, who knows?
What the fuck?
I know. Thank you.
I can only be as blunt as I can be, but what the fuck were you thinking?
I don't know. I just thought he'd come home, and I thought, because, this is going to be so great when I come home and we'll go out, here's what I'd like to do for our anniversary. And here's what I'd like to do if I was home for your birthday. And he just made it all sound good unless it wasn't. And then it was like, then at some point, because he had told me he had sold an asset that he supposedly has, and he was going to have a friend start working on the house. And I go, there's way too much that needs to be done to the house, even to rent it. And it's like, I can't live there right now the way it is. It's just driving me crazy. And it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix it up properly, even to rent it. Well, it's like, I'm not taking out a loan for your house. The house was not even community property. It's in a trust for him. So like
his legacy had already sailed down a river, and so he needs to just sell the house.
Yes. And it probably will have to be sold because, I've been gone for 3 years and the house hasn't gotten any better shape, and I've still paid for trees falling down. And I finally stopped paying for everything. And in the midst of all this, and, we finally, back in November, we finally agreed, okay, yeah, we probably should, it's like, we're done. We need to get a divorce. Like, yeah, that is happening, dude. There's no question about it. And it was like, well, you started your business in my home and you turned your back on my needs. It's like, well, my business was paying for all your needs. It's like, I go, well, like, why didn't you want to be more affectionate? Oh, because you should have tried to be prettier. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? Okay, no, I know I'm not a size 2. And it's not like I wore sweatpants to the visits. It's like,
what kind of
do I look like I'm 68? Please.
No.
Do you see very many gray hairs? Okay, thank you.
No, but I just don't understand what he expected. He is behind bars, and you guys aren't really even supposed to embrace. You're not.
Well, actually, we could. You get to a point where they allowed lifers to have family visits back.
Do you get conjugal visits?
We after probably 15 years of marriage, after several years of marriage, we did get them back, or we did get them. But yeah, it wasn't great. I mean, it was fun. He liked to cook, and, he'd pamper me that way. He'd cook, and we'd play games, and we'd watch movies. But it's like, okay, where's the kissing? where's the making out, dude? It's like, oh, you should have tried to be prettier. It's like, you're just telling me this now? And I know he always had a thing about my weight, because I was thin maybe once, but that was because I was over medicating on thyroid medicine, which I should, not intentionally. I'm never going to be a size 2. I can't, it's like, it's not in my nature. I did not get the thin genes in my family.
That shouldn't even matter.
It should not.
He's supposed to even see the light of day again, and you still married him. So if you were a damn pig, he should be thankful that you did everything that you did. That should not matter.
Yes. And if you saw us in visiting, you would have thought we were the most in love couple ever. And for a long time we were. And, I saw him a couple months ago for the last time, just to go over logistics and finances and stuff and the divorce. And it's like, because he wasn't getting the documents, I said, okay, the documents have been filed. They're on the way. Yeah, I got them. Okay. So sign it and send it back. I'm not asking for any money. Even though you owe me money, I'm not asking. It's like, well, I loved you. And it's like, yeah, you got a fine way of showing it. And I'll miss you. I go, I can't say that back. I hope we'll always be friends. Like, I can't say that back either. And, I go, I have to be done. He wanted his grandma's engagement ring back that I'd been wearing for 20 some odd years. And I said, well, I'm going to keep it at the house. I'm going to keep it for now till, if you've got a kid that wants to come get it from me, even though I'm not legally responsible for giving it back to you because it was a gift to me, it's like, I'll give it to one of your daughters if they will come get it, or if you want to send me to where they live to get it, but I'm just not leaving it at the house in a box, and I'm not going to mail it to any. It's like, yeah, no. So these weird things. And it's like, because I went to England 5 times, once on vacation, 4 times to speak at conferences about the military stuff he used to do. And that, you know, I got paid some, but it never covered all the costs, especially not a flight to England. And it's like, well, you know, you went on all these trips and, you know, you weren't taking care of my needs. Basically, it's like, I went to speak on your behalf. I wasn't just on vacation. Yes, I enjoyed England while I was there, but I was going mostly to places where you told me to go check out and research, and, you know, where you had done military things. It's like, I wasn't just fooling around. And it's just, you know, it's really crazy because my first book, I wrote about all the marriages, but he got 3 chapters of being a nice guy. And, you know, we had this great relationship because we did until we didn't. And what it was like to visit somebody in prison and all that. And all these other wonderful, you know, on these passions that I have that I, you know, get excited about. But it was like, all of a sudden I'm just the bad person. and all of a sudden I am the gold digger that, you know, his family has always accused me of. And it's like,
gold digger for what?
Because supposedly he had all this money, which is like,
well, where the fuck was it?
I don't know, because it's not coming forward now. I go, okay, the divorce is final. Well, I need you to prove it. I go, I paid to have a copy sent to you. I can't help it if the prison didn't give it to you. The other trustee has a copy. She can prove to you that the divorce is final. Where's your money? You're supposed to start now giving her money to pay things for the house. So, you know, I've cut off all my payments. I've cut off all the utilities. His stuff in storage might go to the dumpster. There's no mortgage on the house, but there's a little bit of money left on a line of credit that I just kept paying. That was his mom's. And it's like, this is June. So pretty, you know, in another month, the bank will start getting fussy. And they said, well, can we call him? I said, no, he's in prison, but you can write him. Here's his address. Tell him he's going to lose his house over less than $2,000. So now the other trustee is trying to, you know, help him and do all this stuff. But it's like, you know, I'm writing another book. You know, it's like, and I shouldn't even be using this name. This is my maiden name, but it's like, I'm going to write another book. I'm not going to use his name. I haven't said his name here, but it's like, I want people to understand what it is. It's like, I had no idea this was a thing, this narcissism stuff, and how they can just gaslight you. And these letters I got since we split up, it's like, oh my God. And he doesn't even remember. See, this is the thing. He supposedly doesn't even remember. I go, you know, you were really mean. I don't remember that. It's like, how could you? I got letters, dude. I've got all the mean letters. I have all your mean texts. It's like, how could you just let me? I'm not going to take that. And here's the, and I don't know if this is just him or if this is narcissism, you know, but he's always like, he always told me, it's like, well, you know, I think of women as pets. It's like, seriously? It's like, you grew up in the 50s. I get that. So did I. But I'm not June Cleaver. I'm not Donna Reed. I mean, I love being a homemaker, but, you know, I'm not the best at it. But, you know, it's like, can you, you know what? Why did you marry me? I shouldn't have to tell you that. I married you.
He married you to keep up with his house.
And it's like, well, you can't tell me why you like me or why you married me. I shouldn't have to. Men don't do that. I go, yes, men do. Men or partners, you know, do tell their partner why they like them. It's like, you can hardly give me a compliment.
He had ulterior motives.
Apparently.
I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there. And something that you said that if I could reach through the screen, I would strangle you, because you're like, I did not meet his needs.
Right.
What about your needs?
That's right.
The longest marriage you've had is because the man lived behind bars.
Yeah. I know we probably would have gotten divorced right away, but
like, what about your needs? Compatibility, you know, like sex, companionship, to be able to go do things. Like,
I thought that was, I know, you know, and do strangle me, or real don't, but I'm fine now. And I would tell young women today, run. If your man has gone to prison, run. It's a very hard life. And again, coming from a codependent, I didn't realize I went right into another codependent relationship because it seemed like we were getting along and I was doing all these fun research projects for him and I was going to all these conferences. And yes, I lived in a nice neighborhood, but okay, if you can't keep up, if like your neighbors are looking at you like, why is your house falling apart? It's like, I don't have enough money to keep fixing it, dude. And yeah. And it took me a long time to realize it's like, yeah, my needs are not getting met. And I would explain this to him and he had nothing. It's like, I would tell him, I would look at him in the face and I said, I'm a pretty amazing person. Nothing. I go, I'm this
was coming on and he's not going to feed into that because then you will left him sooner.
I know. Yeah. It's like, so I just said, my needs are not getting met. And then he would just, I would try and explain things calmly in letters. And then we'd start to talk. Oh, no, you were so mean in the letters. I go, I really wasn't. Have you read your letters? It's like, and I can be a bitch if I need to be, but here's what's not working for me. Like, here's my list. And it's just like, we just never addressed it. A good wife should, and all these sentences, they're part of my, comedy routine I'm developing, or the book. It's for both. But like, what about a good husband? It's like, what about this mutual serving?
A good husband isn't in prison for murder.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
So how about we date people who are in form, like real human flesh?
Yes.
Form,
yes.
And we wait for at least a year of knowing them, at least.
Yes.
Live with them for a little bit so you know how they really are. We're going to take baby steps here. You taking notes?
Yes, ma'am. Baby steps. And that is exactly my plan. That is exactly my plan. And I also need to, I'm all for me, going out. I'm going to go. My granddaughter said, Grandma, there's this place here that they do swing dancing every Sunday night. I go, I'm there. I haven't gone yet, but now that I'm back from vacation and stuff, it's like, I'm going to go just to have fun. I don't even care. It's not to dive into the dating pool. And I'm not going to be a good online dater. It's like, yeah, no.
I think you need to take some time off from dating. And I think you need to start to love yourself a little bit.
Yes. And I have been working on that because I think in my heart of hearts, I've pulled away from him 3 years ago. It took me 3 years to untangle it and see if he was actually going to come up with his plan for fixing things, which was never happening. And I'm starting, it's like I've been in therapy for 3 years. I take a lot of walks. I do a lot of self-care. I've spent time healing with my daughter. So I have started dating a little bit, just a little.
You have to learn to be okay with being alone. I mean,
I am. I have been, and I'm just saying that just started, and I've known that guy for years. So, but that just started. But, and I have been alone. I've been alone. Well, I've been alone for 20 some odd years, but I've technically been really alone for a good 3 years now because I moved up here and it's been 3 years. And I haven't been dating this whole time. I haven't, I'd seen my ex a couple times, but I work and I take walks and I do things with my daughter. I went on vacation with my sister and her husband. And my daughter's going, she wanted me to be prepared in case there would be a little onboard romance. It's like, honey, there were 2 single activities and they canceled them because probably nobody showed up. And everybody's average age there was 70 and above. So I saw 3 families and it's like, it wasn't it was a romance situation for the people who were already couples. And I was more than fine just being on my own or like doing stuff with my sister and her husband. And, we palled around on the ship and went on all these excursions and it was a cruise. So it's like, there was no, pairing off. It just wasn't that way. I went to the spa 3 times. So it's like, I am very serious about taking care of myself and knowing who I am and moving on and embracing the things that are important to me. And the people I meet, if that isn't okay with them, well, then they don't rate. They don't rate. And I've had a lot of time to think about this, and I don't even know what time it is, but it's like, if I could, I've learned a few things. It's like, number one, it's like, I have to take care of myself, and I always have. You're never too, like I said, I'm in my I'm almost 70, but it's never too late to change your life if you have to, especially if something's really not working. And the other thing is, like, if you're in a dangerous situation, don't wait. Don't think they're going to change just because they've apologized and brought you roses. Get out of there. And again, I did not do, don't be afraid to call the cops if you have to, and get the heck out of there if you're definitely in danger, because I could have died. It does only escalate. Yeah, I could have died, and so could have my daughter. And like you said, you have to be in love with yourself, and you have to have your own interests and your own hobbies. And great if you meet somebody that is compatible with that, but be okay if it's not. It's like, I spend a lot of time with me and my cats, or me out on a walk. It's like, I don't do stuff with my daughter every day. She's busy. She's got a life. She's got a boyfriend. She's got kids, so it's not all about mom, which is fine. That would be too much togetherness. But self-care. What?
She's still on the first husband?
Oh no, they got divorced after 20 years. And she's dated a few people since, but not as many as me. She's only had one husband.
There you go.
she knows that you don't be in a contest or win any awards, but yeah. So it's like, and I'm to the point where it's like, I don't ever need to be married again, ever. And I thought that way with the last husband. It just was politically better, probably for him, to be married, because you need an advocate with staff. And girlfriends don't count. So, yeah, nobody's ever going to talk to me mean again and stay in my life. And
good for you. You got to put up boundaries.
Exactly. And I'm doing way better with that. And it's like, I know what I don't want. Obviously, I've got the list, and
check it twice.
Why didn't I meet you years ago?
I was saying.
I know, and it's like, it doesn't matter if whether the trauma and the abuse, it's like, bless you. It's like, you can get past these things. They're very hard, and you can get past these things. Journaling helps, talking with mentors or therapists or whatever. If you want to talk to me about my woo-woo ways of working on this stuff, that's another conversation. But, spirituality helps. I'm intuitive. And I'm just going to say, and I know you probably are ready to close, but do you know who Glennon Doyle is?
Glennon Doyle?
Glennon, her name. She wrote a book. She was married. She was in a very Catholic marriage for years, and then they split up. And now she's married to a woman, and she's this really phenomenal author and speaker. But she said, when heartbreak rings, answer the door. Heartbreak is one of the greatest clues of our lives. The thing that breaks your heart is the very thing you were born to help heal. Every world changer's work begins with a broken heart. So, if I can help share the message that, you can get past these things, I've done my job.
Yes. Where can people find your book if somebody would like to read your book?
Well, and here it is. It's called Midlife Magic, and if you go on Amazon, you have to put in Midlife Magic by Joann Richards. So that's the easiest place to find it. I also have a website, dragonhillbooks.net. If you want a signed copy, you can order it that way. And Amazon and all the online, it's ebook, print book, whatever you want. So it's pretty findable. And then the next book will be under a different name, but it will be all about the narcissist. See, he gets his own book, but it won't be nice.
Good thing you're divorced. He might come after you for some proceeds.
Oh, you're right. But, at least he cannot sue me for slander or libel for whatever the proper term is, because it's all going to be true.
Right.
It's like, and again, it's like, if they start the phrase with the good wife should, it's like, run, God, Ron. Because what about the good husband? And to me, it's all about creating an equal partnership, married or not, just anybody you're going to be in association with, especially if it's going to be a romantic. It's like, you need to decide what an equal partnership is for you. And, so that's what I'm deciding. I'm looking at that.
Good for you. You got to take your life back, your voice back, your power back.
I got it. I got it. And like I said, I'm a Leo, and I've taken off probably almost a year from doing any kind of podcast. And this is the first time I've talked about him in this light publicly. So thank you.
Sorry, I hope I didn't.
No, you were great. Because obviously I made some pretty silly and stupid mistakes and shouldn't have stayed. It's like, when did you do? Oh, we told you. It's like, oh, I guess you did. It's taken a village to get me out of that marriage. But life goes on. Life goes on, and life does not end at 68. I got a lot. My daughter says, "You're not dead yet." I go, "No," and I got a lot of activity to do. A lot of fun to have. Yeah.
Good. You look great for 68. And you know what? A size 2, ain't nobody want no size 2. You need a little meat, okay?
People I'm around now think I'm just fine. and it's funny, though, because now that the divorce is final, as one friend said, it looks like you just lost 170 pounds. Because visibly, I'm happier, and it's showing. And it's like, yeah, I love that.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that. So yeah, it's all good.
Cool.
Life's good. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, thanks for having me. This has been really fun. You're a great host.
Oh, thank you.
Keep it up.
I will.
Oh, good.
All links will be found in the bottom of the show notes. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please share it with them. And I am proud to announce my 501c3 is finally set in place. So if you want to check out thecrimeconnection.org, please go ahead and check that out. Leave a donation if you wish. Don't forget to check out those podcasts of the month on the Deluxe Network. Growing Up Bananas, What It's Like Being an Asian Out of Your Community, and In a Pickle, about the ever so famous pickleball. And we'll talk crime another time. Bye.